नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स। नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स। नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स। बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि, धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि, संघं शरणं गच्छामि, द्वितीयंपि बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि, द्वितीयंपि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि, द्वितीयंपि संघं शरणं गच्छामि, तृतीयंपि बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि, तृतीयंपि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि, तृतीयंपि संघं शरणं गच्छामि। पाणातिपाता वेरमणि सिक्खापदं समाधियामि, अदिन्नदाना वेरमणि सिक्खापदं समाधियामि, कामेषु मिच्छाचारा वेरमणि सिक्खापदं समाधियामि, मुसावादा वेरमणि सिक्खापदं समाधियामि, सुरामेरयमज्जपमादठाणा वेरमणि सिक्खापदं समाधियामि, सब्बपापस्य अकरणं कुशलस्य उपसम्पदा, सचित्तपरियोधपणम् एतं बुद्धान् शासनं। साधु साधु साधु।
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. So I'd like to welcome you for joining us here. Today's talk will be on transformation, specifically on the transformation of Angulimala. The story of Angulimala is very popular in Buddhist circles. Angulimala was a contemporary of the Lord Buddha. He started off pretty well. He was born to the king's advisor, the king's top Brahmin minister, and he was raised in very comfortable surroundings. Now there's a bit of folklore about this Angulimala, in addition to the story that we can find in the canon. The folklore includes the details that his father cast his horoscope at his birth and was horrified to learn that he was born under what they considered the robbers constellation, that this boy was somewhat likely to go in a bad way. And his father pondered even whether he should kill his own child, but instead decided to name him Ahimsa, meaning harmless. Himsa would be harmful, ahimsa would be harmless. So he raised them best he could, teaching him manners in the highest, most beautiful way. He was an extremely intelligent child, very humble, eager to please, and very likable. In due time, he was sent off to university, to Taxila, and he was paired up with the top of the teachers, and he became the teacher's pet. He was so good, so respectful. He'd been raised very carefully to be very much ahimsa. The teacher preferred him. The teacher let him become very close to his own family even. And he thrived in that environment. But near the end of his course of studies, the other students had become so disgusted with the teacher's pet that they decided they would have their revenge. All of them got together and they plotted. What could they do? The young man was so perfect. There was nothing honest that they could point out about him. Nothing truly wrong about him that they could say to the teacher to break the teacher from his favorite pupil. So they hatched a plot. And in 3 groups, they each approached the teacher. And the first group said, you know, the word is that your student Ahimsa is, he's out to replace you. And the teacher became very angry. And he said, go from here. I won't have you sever me from my own son. Not that he was his own son, but like his own son. Then the second group, and then when finally the third group said, you need to open your eyes. This young man is close to your wife and he's going to replace you. The teacher became very upset. The poisonous seed of doubt was planted and he decided, I have to get rid of this boy. So what to do? When the young man had finished his studies, the teacher approached him and said, okay, you've come to the end of your studies. It's time for you to return home. But for your studies to be of any good to you, you have to properly honor the teacher. You must give an honorarium. And he did a terrible deed. He told the young Ahimsa that he must have from him as the honorarium 1,000 human fingers, all taken from the little finger of the right hand. Now, surely he expected that this fellow would die quickly in the effort of killing people to get the little fingers. The king's men would get him or someone would resist. He underestimated our friend who was born under the robber constellation. So the canon picks up on the story. You can find it in the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length discourses. Here's a modern translation of it. It's available through Wisdom Press. Highly recommend that anyone seriously interested in Buddhist studies get a copy of this through Wisdom Press. It's a translation by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli and Bhikkhu Bodhi. And this is discourse number 86. It picks up here where the young Ahimsa has been succeeding in his quest for human fingers. For some reason, it never seemed to even occur to him to get them harmlessly from a cemetery. He goes out armed with bows and arrows, swords, knives, and he haunts a particular forest. I've read that it was about 30 miles from Savatthi, the Buddha's main monastery, the location of the Buddha's main monastery. And he would attack travelers on the forest road. And he would cut them down, kill them, take a finger, disappear. Next group, he'd get them too. Men would travel in larger and larger caravans, hoping to escape the grotesque serial killer who was out for this bizarre task of taking only one human finger. Can you imagine? as more and more reports of these deaths came in, people became more and more afraid to use the forest road. This fellow started to become known as Angulimala because he found the best way to preserve the fingers was to string them around his neck as a necklace, a grotesque, hideous necklace. Anguli means finger, and mala means like a necklace or bracelet. So he had a necklace of human fingers. And this former ahimsa, now quite harmful himsa, Angulimala, had extraordinary physical abilities. He himself, in his own words, would record that he was able to outrun a swift deer. He was able to outrun a swift carriage, a swift horse. This young man could even outrun an elephant. Who could withstand him? As his reputation as a brutal killer grew, then even when 40 men at a time would try to go through the forest, they couldn't face up to him. It was so terrifying as they were being attacked, and they couldn't run away fast enough. He would just chop them down with no mercy and do his grotesque deed to the body, taking one finger. Now, the canon records that the Lord Buddha became aware of this situation of this Angulimala and went out to save him. The ancient stories add the details that his mother figured out that the killer out there must be their own son, the one born under the bad constellation, the one they'd tried so hard to keep as harmless. He had not come home from college as expected. She said to her husband, "It must surely be our son that's out there. We must go convince him to stop his evil ways." And her husband, the father, said, "The king can have him. I'll have nothing more to do with him." But a mother's love is deep, and she went out herself, a well-born lady, delicate, out on the roads alone, to face the serial killer, certain it may be her son, to save him. So the thing is, he was so depraved at this point, having killed hundreds of men, women, and children, that even it being his own dear loving mother was not going to be enough to stop him. Now, once he had terrorized the roadway for a period of time, people were no longer coming that route. People would not even gather firewood in the forest. So he started raiding villages in the night. Entire villages emptied. So he would go reach a little further. The entire district was becoming emptied of people. Refugees of his gruesome acts were flooding into Savatthi, and they were surrounding the king's palace, demanding that something be done. So it's at this time when the pressure has built up on the king, and he's rounding up an army to face this fellow. And his mother has gone out to save him. It's at this same time he has 999 fingers. He needs one more. And as he needs that one more, he sees his own mother coming. And what is he going to do? He'll kill his own mother. But then he sees someone else. A lone recluse, a fellow with shaved head and a saffron robe, walking alone. And he thought, well, this is amazing. This is a marvelous thing. Here's a fellow alone. Even in a group of 30, 40, they cannot withstand me. And yet this one is by himself. Surely I'll take his life. So he took his sword and his shield, and he buckled on all of his weaponry, and he ran after this lone recluse, not knowing that it's the Buddha. Now, I've read that it was about the 20th year of the Buddha's teaching career. He was well known at this point. This Angulimala didn't recognize this monk as being the Lord Buddha himself, but he could tell that he was part of that community of monks that was headed by the Buddha. So Angulimala, who can outrun a deer, a carriage, a horse, even an elephant, ran after the Lord Buddha And the Lord Buddha walked calmly along, serene, unperturbed. And Angulimala ran as fast as he could. But he couldn't quite catch up to the Buddha, who was walking serene, unperturbed. And Angulimala says, "What is this? I can outrun even an elephant. I can't catch up to this recluse." And he doubled his efforts. He might as well have been running on a treadmill. He can't get near him. It was a little psychic feat that the Buddha pulled on him, that he's walking so calmly and slowly, and the Angulimala, who is so fast, can't catch him. And when he's fully winded, he finally stops, and gasping for breath, he cries out, "Stop, recluse, stop." Well, can you imagine this? Stop so I can kill you? Who's going to stop for that? "Stop, stop," he cries. And the Buddha calmly replies to him, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." Angulimala was quite baffled. He knew that this group of monks were known for honesty. And isn't it lovely that the Buddha's monks had such a reputation, that even an evil, depraved serial killer would know and rely upon the fact that one of these fellows with the shaved head and the saffron robe would be telling the truth. He'd be telling the truth, but he just said something impossible. He just said that he who was walking had stopped, and that Angulimala, who had stopped, had not stopped. This was a puzzle. So he said, "How is it?" And he said it in verse, for he was of Brahmin family, and the Brahmins often liked to speak in extemporaneous verse. He says, "While you are walking, recluse, you tell me you have stopped, but now when I have stopped, you say I have not stopped. I ask you now, O recluse, about the meaning. How is it that you have stopped and I have not?" And he says, the Buddha says, "Angulimala, I have stopped forever. I abstain from violence towards living beings, but you have no restraint towards things that live. That is why I have stopped, and you have not." So from the moment the Buddha said, "Angulimala, I have stopped forever," it's quite clear. He's using stopped as some sort of metaphor, something deeper than what Angulimala had been anticipating. And he realized there was something very special about this monk, this one who has stopped. He could see now that it must be a psychic power that caused him to be unable to catch up with this ascetic monk. And he realized there's something deep and powerful in this having stopped. For it is understood, I think, was understood in those times, that the pains of life continue in cycles. From life to life, birth to death, there's so much pain in life. And there's more pain in the next life, and again. And so if one could actually stop the cycle of pain and live out this life in happiness, that would be the best thing. This monk has stopped. What can he mean with this? So when the Buddha said this, that he has stopped and Angulimala has not, Angulimala realized it was the Lord Buddha himself who had come. And he said, "Oh, at long last, this recluse, a venerated sage, has come to this great forest for my sake. Having heard your stanza teaching me the Dhamma, I will indeed renounce evil forever." And he threw down his weapons. And he asked the Buddha to allow him to become a monk. Now, what do you think? Would the Buddha allow a serial killer, perhaps the world's worst serial killer, the worst serial killer of all time? Could such a man make a transformation? Can such a man stop his evil ways? Can he do it with even just so few words having been said? Is it possible? Let us stop for a moment and think about what it means to stop. On another occasion, the Lord Buddha said to his monks, "O monks, this mind is luminous." And he explained that the problem is that this luminous, bright, shining mind is covered over with greed, with hatred, with confusion. It's covered over with pride and ignorance and delusion. It's covered over with violence, selfishness, impatience, cruelty, and hatred. It's covered over with all the defilements of the heart that could ever make a person feel dissatisfied and miserable. When one removes this covering, then the clear purity of the mind can shine forth. To become enlightened is not to create something new within oneself, not to become some great new thing or being. It's to let go of all the things that are unenlightened. It's to fully let go of all the hindrances and all the fetters, all the things that could ever make one's heart miserable. That is what enlightenment is. It's a matter of stopping doing the things that prevent enlightenment from being there. So Angulimala, he decided to stop too. So the Lord Buddha accepted him. He said, "Ehi bhikkhu, come bhikkhu, come monk." And he reached out his hand to him and he let him become a monk right there on the spot. And then they went back to the monastery, not immediately. They took their time. He let Angulimala get adjusted a little bit to the idea, gave him a little training along the way. And they went back to the monastery. And Angulimala undertook the practice. Meanwhile, we never hear any more about his mother. I presume that she got home safely. Meanwhile, the people have surrounded the palace and they demand action of the king. There is a robber bandit in your realm. He is killing people. Even 20, 30 men cannot withstand him, they cry. He has laid waste to villages, to districts, to that region. He is in your realm. You must do something, king. They demanded it, all these refugees. What can the king do? He raises an army, a whole army of cavalry, and he goes out. But this is King Pasenadi. He's actually the most powerful king of the realm. He's devoted to the Lord Buddha, and he stops at the monastery to pay his respects one last time before going out to face what he figures to be certain death. He says he goes to where the Lord Buddha is staying and dismounts from his carriage and walks there and greets him respectfully, sits down at one side. And the Buddha said, "So, I see you are here with your whole army. Have the Lichavis attacked you? Has King Bimbisara gone to war with you?" He liked to say things like that. He knew what was really going on, but he just opened up the conversation to get things started. The king said, "No, Lord Buddha, it is this Angulimala. I've come with my army to try to put him down." But he says, "I shall never be able to put him down, Venerable Sir. He is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living things. Villages, towns, and districts have been laid waste by him. He is constantly murdering people, and he wears their fingers as a garland. I shall never be able to put him down." And the Buddha said, "Great king, if this Angulimala were to give up killing and put on the robe and shave his hair and beard and live compassionate for beings, never killing, not stealing, living without any sexual conduct, if he were to live honestly and become a good monk, a virtuous man, what would you do?" And the king said, "Well, I'd give him my protection, and I would rise up before him, and I would offer him a seat, and I would give him all his requisites, and I would make sure he was taken care of." He said, "But Lord, of course, it's not possible that such a depraved being as this Angulimala could ever make such a transformation. And it happened that Angulimala was sitting near the Buddha, and the Buddha extended his arm and he said, "Great king, here is Angulimala." And the king looked at this big monk, and he was terrified, and his hair stood on end. And he was just so shocked he couldn't even move. And then the Buddha said, "There's no reason to be afraid, great king. He's harmless. There's no reason to fear." And the king overcame his fear. And he approached Angulimala and he asked if it's true and that he's made this transformation. He's a monk now and so forth. And Angulimala said, "Yes, great king, it is true." And the king asked him for his name, for his clan, his mother and father's clan names. And he told him, and he realized that this was the son of his own Brahman. And he realized too that he'd heard about this boy who was born under the robber constellation. And he rejoiced and he praised the Buddha and he said, "I could not have put him down with weaponry. With all my army, I could not have put him down. But you who have no weapon, Lord Buddha, you could tame him. Only you could have done it." And so praising him, he then said, "Well, Buddha, I'm busy now. I have much to do." And the Buddha said, "It is time now for you to do as you see fit, great king." Also, the king offered Angulimala any support he needs, but Angulimala wants to live a very simple life as a monk. He said, "No, king, I'm fine. I'm content with my triple robe." So then the king departs with his army. Can you imagine how relieved he is? He's not going to die that very day. And he goes off rejoicing. So do you think the people accepted the transformation of this Angulimala? Not on your life. They wouldn't give him a bit of alms food. As he went for his alms rounds with his begging bowl, like the other monks would do, they would run screaming from him. It was the one who had killed so many people. They would slam their doors. They would run. One day, Angulimala was on alms round, and he became aware of a woman who was in bitter labor. It was a labor that was not going to end well. It was going to end in the death of this woman and her child who was not coming out properly. And compassion arose. That was new for him. He was not compassionate before. His heart was really shaken. Now, mind you, while he's trying to meditate, he has the day-to-day disappointment, not being able to do his alms round. When he tries to meditate, he sees the visions of all the people he murdered. He sees them flailing around, their arms and legs shaking in terror. He sees them saying things like, "Please, I have many children, don't kill me." And he killed them anyway. These things haunted him in his meditation, and he would get up and leave, give up. The Buddha came up with a plan to help him. He said, "So, you notice this woman in labor. Go to her and say to her, 'Sister, from the time of my birth, I've never killed a living being. By the power of this truth, may you and the child be well.'" He said, "I can't say that." And the Buddha said, "Say from the time of my noble rebirth, I've never killed a living being. By this truth, may you and your baby be well." So the family of this woman put up a screen, and Angulimala approached, and he said that. He made this statement of truth. Truth is powerful. And by that, he worked a miracle. The woman was well, the baby was born, they lived. And the people said, his loving kindness is so great. His harmlessness is such that now he can save life. And then the people began to accept him. He was able to settle into his meditation. And before long, diligent, ardent, and resolute, he was able to come to the end of all suffering. And he says that he spoke some verses talking about what a beautiful life he has now. For even though he was so powerful in the past, staying in forest at the root of a tree in mountain caves, he had an agitated heart. But now I rest and rise in happiness. Happily I spend my life. Now he is free of all the snares of evil. Oh, the pity, the compassion that was shown him by the Master. He lived in bliss and happiness. He became one of the greatest disciples of the Lord Buddha. And if someone like him could make such a transformation, friend, I think all of us can. Thank you.
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Namo Buddhaya, meritorious Dhamma friends. Today we are learning the importance of the Nikini full moon Poya day. The Nikini full moon Poya day is very important for the Buddhist people in all over the world. On the Nikini full moon Poya day, great things happen on the Nikini full moon Poya day. One of the greatest things that happened on the Nikini full moon Poya day was the first, on that day, the first Sangha council happened in this world after the Buddha's passing away, after the passing away of the Gautama Buddha, after the Mahaparinibbana of the Gautama Buddha. After the Gautama Buddha passed away, dear Dhamma friends, one bhikkhu who was known as Subhadra told a bad thing. He said, now the main leader has passed away. We can live according to the way we want. Now there is no one to lay it down. Now there is no one to introduce precepts. Now there is no one to put rules for us, to set rules for us. Now we can live according to the way we want. So this was an evil monk. Then Arahan Mahakassapa heard this, and immediately he decided to recollect the Buddha's teachings, to protect the Buddha's teachings for the well-being and for the benefit of the future generation. Dear Dhamma friends, today, if you are listening to this Dhamma sermon, today if you can see monks, if you are hearing the Buddha's teachings, that's because this Dhamma was initially protected by Arahan Mahakassapa. So first of all, let's pay our homage to our great, most venerable, our great disciple, Arahan Mahakassapa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And dear Dhamma friends, in the first Sangha Council, there were 500 bhikkhus assembled for the first Sangha Council. In the first Sangha Council, there were two special monks to recall the Buddha's teachings. One monk was Arahantananda. The other monk who recollected the Buddha's code of conduct, the code of conduct of the monks, whatever preached by the Buddha, whatever laid down by the Buddha, the code of conduct laid by the Buddha for the bhikkhus, that was recollected by our most venerable Arahant Upali. So let's pay our homage to most venerable Arahant Ananda and to our most venerable Arahant Upali Mahathera. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Today we are learning Dhamma to be thankful to Arahant Mahakassapa, to Arahant Ananda, and also to Arahant Upali, and also for the monks who lived in the past, and also being thankful to the monks who lived in the past. They protected this Dhamma. And the great lay disciples like Kujjuttara, they also protected this Dhamma. So we are very fortunate to hear this Dhamma even after Buddha has passed away. Even after 2600 years, we are still listening and practicing this Dhamma. Still bhikkhus are there in this world. Still we can see nuns. There are lay disciples. There are female lay disciples. All these things are to be seen as a result of listening and hearing the Dhamma, and as a result of the Dhamma being protected. So when we learn Dhamma today, and each and every day when we listen to Dhamma, first of all we should remember the Buddha, then Arahant Mahakassapa, then the great monks like Arahant Ananda, Arahant Upali, and also our great monk, the great Arahant who visited Sri Lanka, that is Arahant Mahinda. So on the Nikini full moon Poya day, there was another significant thing that happened. On the Nikini full moon Poya day, our most venerable Ananda Mahathera became an Arahant. Only after the Buddha passed away, Venerable Ananda became an Arahant. Venerable Ananda appeared in the Sangha council from the earth as an Arahant. And then all the other monks, 499 monks, were all Arahants, but it was only Arahant Ananda. It was only Venerable Ananda who should become Arahant to participate in the Sangha council consisting of 500 monks. So we should be happy that we are so fortunate to hear these things, these wonderful things happen in the Buddha Sasana. Then the second observance of the rains retreat also happens on a Nikini full moon Poya day. So, dear Dhamma friends, on the Nikini full moon Poya day, we should light a lamp to Arahant Mahakassapa, to Arahant Ananda, to Arahant Upali, and pay homage to those great Arahants. And also we can think of those 500 bhikkhus who gathered for the first Sangha council to recollect the Buddha's teachings. And then only the Buddha's teachings were protected eventually. So today we decided to teach you about Arahant Ananda. Because in the Sangha council, dear Dhamma friends, the main person was Arahant Mahakassapa. Arahant Mahakassapa sat and questioned Arahant Ananda like this. For an example, dear Ananda, Brahmajala Sutta was preached. And where was Brahmajala Sutta was preached? To whom Brahmajala Sutta was preached? What was the reason for the Buddha to preach the Brahmajala Sutta? So each and every sutta was inquired, was questioned by Arahant Mahakassapa from Venerable Ananda. For each and every question that was asked by most Venerable Arahant Mahakassapa, our Venerable Ananda Mahathera replied. And he remembered all the incidents and all the Buddha's teachings. And said, on one occasion, when the Blessed One was living in Savatthi, I heard like this. Thus have I heard. Evam me sutang ekang samayam bhagava. So, Venerable Ananda explained the Buddha's teachings, just as Venerable Ananda uttered the Buddha's teachings without missing a single word. So, dear Dhamma friends, today we decided to teach you about Arahant Ananda, Venerable Ananda. You know, Venerable Ananda was the chief attendant of the Buddha. Dear Dhamma friends, the day Buddha gave the responsibility of becoming a chief attendant for the Buddha to Venerable Ananda, Venerable Ananda asked for 8 boons, requested 8 conditions. The day that Buddha said, Dear Ananda, today onwards you will be my chief attendant. On that occasion, Venerable Ananda asked for 8 boons. The 8 boons, dear Dhamma friends, listen to those 8 boons and see how amazing Arahanta Ananda was. See, there were 8. 4 of them were, 4 of them, Venerable Ananda does not take the gains that Buddha gets. The first one is, if the Blessed One will not give me the robes that Blessed One has received. Now see, the first condition is, the robes that Buddha gets, Venerable Ananda is not willing to accept that. Second one, the Blessed One will not give me the food that Blessed One receives. Third one, if the Blessed One will not grant me to dwell in the same fragrant kuti. Now just imagine, if you were granted to stay with the Buddha, what would you do? But Arahanta Ananda, even though he was a chief attendant, he never took things for granted. He never misused becoming a chief attendant. See the boons that Venerable Ananda requested. Then the fourth one, if I will not have to go where Blessed One is invited. So if the Blessed One get an invitation, Blessed One should go. I will not go on behalf of the Blessed One. What happens in the ordinary world? If the main person receives an invitation to go somewhere, and if a downline is requested to go, won't he be waiting to go? But Venerable Ananda was not waiting to visit the invitations that Buddha gets. That's how humble our Ananda Swami Nasi was. Then, but if the Blessed One will go with me where I am invited. So if Venerable Ananda is invited, the Blessed One should go. That means Venerable Ananda understood, and he remembered that. He was aware that all the benefits Venerable Ananda gets is all because of a Buddha. And sometimes people loved Venerable Ananda because he was the chief attendant of the Buddha. So the first 4 things, the benefits that Venerable Ananda gets because of the Buddha, he rejected. The food, then the kuti, then the robes and invitations, the benefits that Venerable Ananda could get because of a Buddha, Venerable Ananda rejected them. See how content our Venerable Ananda was? Now listen to the next one. But if the Blessed One will go with me where I am invited. Now if Venerable Ananda is invited, Ananda won't just accept that. He would put the Blessed One in the first place. He would give the priority and the main place for the Blessed One. And then the 6th one, if the Blessed One grant me permission to introduce, if the Blessed One grant me permission to introduce the visitors at the moment of their arrival. So if anyone come to meet the Blessed One should grant permission for Venerable Ananda to take them to the Buddha at their arrival. See the boons, see the conditions that Venerable Ananda is putting. Then, if I shall be granted to approach the Blessed One as soon as doubt shall arise in me. So whenever Venerable Ananda would have a doubt, he need the permission to meet the Blessed One as soon as possible. When the Blessed One preaches Dhamma in my absence, the Blessed One will repeat the discourse to me as soon as I shall return. So if the Buddha preaches Dhamma where Venerable Ananda is not around, or when Venerable Ananda is not with the Buddha, Venerable Ananda requested the Buddha to preach that Dhamma again. See the 8 boons. Dear Dhamma friends, the Buddha accepted these 8 boons, the 8 wishes, the 8 conditions. These 8 conditions were requested wholeheartedly with loving kindness. Dear Dhamma friends, and then Venerable Ananda attended to the Buddha for 25 years with thoughts of loving kindness, with actions of loving kindness, and with words of loving kindness. And never a single thought of anger arose in his mind for 25 years. Even after the Buddha passed away, Venerable Ananda used to go to the Buddha's kuti and offer water and the things that need to brush the teeth early morning, just as thinking the Buddha is still alive. See how grateful, how much gratitude Venerable Ananda had. And then every day, 9 times, Venerable Ananda used to go around the Buddha's kuti. Even while the Buddha was alive, Venerable Ananda, in the middle of the night, 3 times, he used to go 9 rounds. Each time, 3 rounds. Even after Buddha passed away, Venerable Ananda did that. Dear Dhamma friends, how fortunate Venerable Ananda was. The most of the time, dear Dhamma friends, if there was a special name, if there was a name said by the Buddha frequently, that was our most Venerable Ananda's name. And if there was a monk who lived with the Buddha for a long time together, it was our Venerable Ananda. So let's pay homage to our Venerable Ananda in this Nikini Full Moon Poya Day. Let's light a lamp to our Venerable Ananda in this Nikini Full Moon Poya Day and pay homage to our most Venerable Ananda. And think of Arahan Mahakassapa on this Nikini Full Moon Poya Day. Think of Arahan Upali on this Nikini Full Moon Poya Day. Dear Dhamma friends, we can do all these things as humans. We have received this rare opportunity. We were born as humans. Now we are born as humans. We are living as humans. Before we die, we should gain the ultimate assurance from the Buddha's teachings. That is to develop a pleasant mind, develop a beautiful mind, develop a pleasant mind towards the Buddha. Then to develop a pleasant mind, or else to place confidence, to believe in the Buddha's teachings, and to have a pleasant mind towards the Sangha. Even though we can't see these Arahants, we should be happy that we are coming from that great lineage. Lineage of great Arahants. So, dear Dhamma friends, in this Nikini Full Moon Poya Day, hope you think of Venerable Ananda and observe 8 precepts and have a wonderful Nikini Full Moon Poya Day and spend a wonderful Nikini Full Moon Poya Day and gain much merits to our lives and observe 8 precepts and learn Dhamma and practice Dhamma and meditate to realize the 4 noble truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya.